I'm Natasha Turak, Global Markets Reporter for fDi magazine. On September 24th, fDi, along with FT Live, the Financial Times events arm, held the fDi Forum 2015, a gathering of corporate decision makers discussing international expansion strategies. We heard from such business leaders as the executive director of Tata Limited and top executives from Dell, Hyatt, Janssen, Raytheon, and others. They told us about the challenges their companies face as they move across borders, as well as the new business segments, technologies, and markets that are holding promise for future growth. We also included in the mix advisors for multinational firms, such as legal experts, outsourcing professionals, and consultants, as well as select representatives of locations seeking to attract investment. In the discussions, India was cited time and time again as a market currently holding enormous potential. Its economic growth is ramping up, yet there are still huge development needs and consumer needs that foreign investors can help address. Healthcare technology is one of these needs, and that is a market segment that was highlighted as presenting exciting opportunities for growth, not just for India, but for other emerging countries. In viewing the global economic landscape and facing a slowdown in many emerging markets, cautious optimism seemed to be the prevailing mood among our speakers. We spoke to some of them on the day, as well as an attendee or two. Here's a roundup of what they had to say.
I think it's always the first jump into going into another cultural move, and I think it's something that we struggle with when we're thinking of expanding globally, is where we're going to do it and how we're going to do it, and are we going to fit in, and are our products available to be sold in that area. I think R&D is a big motivator, certainly from an investment point of view. If you can prove that you're an innovative company or have some R&D potential, it really helps in getting that investment that you need to drive it forward.
The biggest topic that we have out there is the complete uncertainty that is in the environment today. So we have, whether it's in the developed world, the uncertainty about will actually the growth that's achieved in recent times actually come about? Will it stay, or will we actually see a downturn again? And the other related trend is just general lack of safety, security. The world is facing an enormous amount of issues, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in the Russian regions, parts of Africa, Latin America, you name it, there are problems happening in various parts of the world, and that makes, for companies that have either operations in multiple locations or investors who want to invest internationally, it makes the whole decision very difficult. It makes decisions about whether to put more money in problematic, because you're not quite sure about how it will play out, whether the population will remain stable, whether the economy will continue to grow or not, and therefore what it will mean for your investment.
Yeah, I think companies, increasingly are moving into markets which appear to be safe on the first hand, but over a period of time they become increasingly challenging. So I think organisations need to be mobile, they need to be quick, they need to be nimble in order to get into those markets and out of them, and be conscious of the political environment that they're in. I think that's probably one of the key things I picked up this morning.
The biggest challenges for companies is actually knowing how to go into a new country. If you're in the developed world, it's hard enough. If you imagine going to a developing country, it's even harder, because the systems, the processes, the infrastructure, the governance, the regulation isn't there. So if you're doing foreign direct investment and companies want to invest in a country, the challenge is still actually how difficult it is to set up in a country. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is that there isn't a lot of help. You have to have the right relationships and contacts, and you have to work pretty hard for years, not months, but years, to actually build those relationships and establish a presence in those countries.
What I've heard here today is that actually for those talking about emerging markets in particular, and frontier markets, I think there's a great sense of realism. I've always been concerned about hype around financing. It's a very dangerous kind of emotion that gets in there, and we've seen over the past few years many talks about the wall of private equity that's going to pile into Africa, and it's a new growth frontier and all of that. We have to take that with a pinch of salt and put some realism into it.
Well, I'm more specialist or specialized in the emerging markets. So I would say that before expanding into those markets, one has to learn their culture, one has to learn the history, how they welcome or don't welcome the investments, but you have to be more practical while creating your ventures in emerging market like in the countries of CIS, and creating a bulletproof, multi-layered international structure which would, at the end of the day, safeguard your investment and help you in repatriation of your profits, and at the end of the day, help you to sell your venture.
As you can see, there are still many issues left to discuss and much more to explore. We will continue to cover these topics in FDI Magazine, and of course, we'll pick up the discussions again at the next FDI Forum. Stay tuned.